All right, guys. Welcome to this episode of Breaking and Entering. I am one of your hosts.
Your first host.
I was about to say first host, yeah. I am one of your hosts, Enoch.
I am your second, or one of your other hosts, Blair.
So what's the topic today, man?
Topic today is positivity, and specifically, I think, kind of maintaining positivity, even though you may come across obstacles that really kind of impair our natural abilities to kind of just like have that frequency within us. You actually have to start trying to focus more on it and choose it rather than it just being natural to you.
Yeah. So we think it's a good topic because, again, I think a lot of us thought that like kind of COVID-19 would be gone by now, but
Right.
it's month 5, 6 in America.
And there's really no end in sight right now.
No end in sight. And so I kind of have friends who, like, at the beginning of it were really bad and now they're doing really good. But then I also have friends who at the beginning were doing really good and now they're doing really bad.
Right.
And some of it is circumstances, but I think really the biggest difference between them is just their mindset.
Yeah. Well, and if you're an introvert or an extrovert too, because if you're extroverted and you're in lockdown, it's I don't know how
Those
you're
are
making
people
it.
probably marching.
Yeah.
Protesting.
Like, we gotta do something.
Yeah.
Get out of the house.
So yes. So I guess what would be kind of cool for the audience to know, this might be a B episode. I feel like this is a B episode, but
Okay.
I guess it's kind of like if we could think of a time that we were in a negative place and we stayed in a negative place. We let it get to us.
Oh man.
And then a negative place in which we didn't and we overcame it. Obviously, since we're here, we've always overcome in a long haul all of our negative places, but
Exactly.
like during that time we didn't overcome it. So I don't know. Do you have one that just comes to your mind?
I definitely have one.
Okay, cool. Because I need to think a little bit.
It was like 2 years of my life.
Oh yeah. Okay. I think I know where you're going.
Yeah.
Go for it though. Go for it.
Okay. And what was even more like almost poetic about it, I guess, is it went from me like having really one of the best like years of my life to like having a subsequently like worst 2 years of my life. So when anyone says hard times or stress or pain, the first thing that I think about is my time in Grenada, right? When I went to medical school, which, has nothing to do with Grenada itself. I love Grenada, but the circumstances that I was in while I was there. So my first year in Grenada was amazing. It was me. You know, when I first went there, I really wanted to get to know the culture, get to know the people, and to an extent I did, but what I really gained from it was knowing myself even more than I had previously. And I really developed a love for who I was at that time, which makes what subsequently happened even more painful, because I gained so much in that year, and then I hurt my knee. So, you know, when I first got hurt, I was thinking maybe a couple of weeks, couple of months, and I'd be good again, be myself. Everything that I defined myself as, I would still have and retain, right? But that is not what happened. I frankly still have knee pain to this day. It's much better managed than it was, but I still have it. Anyways, what happened was I hurt my knee, and it's some of the most severe physical pain that I've ever had. Actually, not some. It's the most severe physical pain I've ever had in my life. And up until that point, I was of the mindset that emotional pain was much, much worse than physical pain. And to an extent, I still believe that, right?
Yeah. But now it's a little different perspective.
But yes, it is a different perspective, because short-term physical pain, it's not that bad, right?
Chronic though.
You get kicked in the nuts, you know,
Okay.
it sucks. But after like 30 minutes, you're over it. You know, next like a month later, you kind of forgot you even got kicked in the nuts, maybe, you know.
Nope. I got kicked in the nuts. February 25th, 1997, and there was.
I feel like there's a problem with you if if it's happening like that and you're remembering.
It hurt. That's
Yeah.
my pain. You took me to a bad place.
Yeah. Yes.
I
exactly.
wasn't able to overcome that negativity.
Yeah, it stayed right there. Anyways, so short-term physical pain, you have it, it sucks, but eventually it fades away. You kind of move on. You're able to process that, whether physically or like emotionally, and it doesn't really affect who you are very much, right? But you have emotional pain, and for one thing, I think Americans, to begin with, and men even more so, have a very strong issue of being able to confront their own negative emotions. We tend to just push it away, and then for whatever reason, we believe that it's no longer there.
Well, it's manifesting in its way in every single aspect of our life.
Even if you don't realize it. Right. So in that way, acute physical pain, short-term physical pain, doesn't really change who you are that much, right? It might change who you are for those hours, days, weeks that you're having it, but when it resolves, you kind of go back to your normal. Emotional pain can have long-lasting effects and really actually affect who you are and how you behave and how you interact with other people. To the same degree, long-term chronic physical pain will start to change who you are. There are certain attributes of myself that I had, what was it now, 6, 7 years ago? I've kind of lost count of how many years I've been in pain at this point. And there's
2015, so about 5
years. There's not really point in keeping track in my mind. But there were certain things that that used to be a really big part of my life. Like I was a personal trainer. So I was really fit. I was doing like handstand push-ups. I don't know if you've tried those before, but and not like against the wall. Like I was doing it like balance exercise, handstand push-ups. Mm-hmm. There aren't that many people that try to do that.
Go ahead, hype yourself up.
I can't do it anymore. I don't even try it. But
that was probably one of the. I came to visit him in Grenada when probably your last week when you were there. And just like me and you, like I said, we met during personal training. We met like we were always doing physical activity. Even like we did martial arts together. So we had a very physical relationship just in terms of like our activities. We walk around campus. Yeah. Like just So that's the Blair that I knew for the 3 years that we were friends at Georgia Tech. And then even though you had been in Grenada for 2 years, it's just that was the image that stuck into me. And then literally as I get off the plane and I see you for the first time, I see Blair in crutches. Like same smile though. I will give you that same smile.
I would disagree with that, but I will take your word for
physically
it.
Physically the same smile.
Okay.
Maybe mentally, emotionally, it wasn't there, but you at least attempted.
Yeah.
To put on that smile.
Yeah.
And I will always appreciate that moment just for that, because for me it was like, oh, okay, like this is Blair, and now this is the new norm of Blair.
Yeah.
Which is kind of cool because we're talking about new norms.
Yeah.
So did you really ever get over? Are you? I mean, this is a terrible question, but are you over that? Like, what's the transformation process that's been through you having this chronic injury?
So I don't know that over is the right word, but
overcome. So,
I guess let me go back and say that part of how I really defined myself back then was as a really physical person, right? Like I was strong, even though I might not have looked like it.
You were strong. I lifted with you. You were strong.
Yeah, exactly.
Especially biceps. You were strong.
That was my biggest. Yeah. that was my best attribute back then. But I was strong, and that was literally when I thought of Blair. Kindness. Incredibly handsome and attractive, strong. Right?
Keep going. Keep going.
But, so, I mean, that was really like, and even if I wasn't strong, like, it was physically active, fit. I was this person who fitness was a value that I had. And when I hurt my knee, it was no longer something that I could like pursue, give my time and dedication to. Same thing with martial arts, which is a component of that physical activity. Same thing with dancing, which is something that I loved. And I mean, I do to a degree now, but not in the same way that I used to, right? And then, honestly, that pain affected, because it changed, it kept me from being that person that I was. It started to affect me emotionally, mentally. It started to make me doubt who I was. And there was a time when I didn't really know who I was anymore. And if you don't know who you are, you can't really love yourself. And that love that I had worked so hard to gain my first year, you know, in that second year,
It's ripped away.
It was ripped away from me, yes. And then Wrinkles died, and
Wrinkles
and
is
other things.
one of the greatest dogs that ever have existed.
Yes.
And that was his dog, and it
Yes.
yes.
Yeah.
There should be a movie about Wrinkles.
There should be.
There should be people should be like Lassie, Wrinkles. Who's the better dog? Snoopy, Scooby, Wrinkles.
Yes.
Like it should be a whole thing.
I'm with you. I appreciate that.
He was a great dog.
He was a great dog. In the last year, I've kind of started to get to know myself as a doctor, right? And so a different part of myself has become, I've literally had to put much more focus on it because of the time and dedication and energy that goes into actually training to become a doctor when you're in residency. And so I think part of it is that, but I've also kind of come to a point in my life where I'm like, would I love to like be able to run again? Which, as an aside, I haven't actually run in like 4 or 5 years because, not necessarily because it would hurt that time, which it may, but because it may actually damage my knee, or the next day I may feel pain and not be able to take care of my patient as well because whatever reason I can't like get in the position that I need to or whatever. And so I typically avoid things that I know may hurt me the next day or may actually cause physical damage to my knee. I don't want to tear my meniscus again and then actually like have to take time off of residency because I did something that I wanted to do that wasn't a good decision for my current situation, if that makes sense.
No, it makes a lot of sense. It's actually quite thoughtful to your patients.
Yeah. So over the last year, I think I'm able to maintain my positivity and happiness even though going through that much pain because I've allowed my values and priorities to change and to shift, right? So at this point, being the fittest person I can be is no longer like one of my top priorities. One, because it would literally damage me to try to attain that, but also because I guess I've just found things that are more important to me right now, right? Friendship, love, being a doctor, and being the best doctor that I can be are always going to be things that are above being physically fit to me at this point. And so because I've allowed those values to shift, it no longer holds that disassociation with, well, you're not being who you are anymore, right? And so I allowed my values and priorities to shift that changed my cognizance of who I am to myself. And now I'm able to say, well, this is who I am, and I love this person.
So it seems like just from hearing your story and kind of having the details, having went through the details with you, experiencing with you. So it seems like you gave 2015 in a terrible mental place, and then now in 2020 in a much more positive mental space. So you've overcome, if that's the word we're going to use, probably a better word out there for this, but
maybe.
But so that's where you're at now. But it seems like, well, it's not seems like I experienced it with you. Like there was 2017, like almost like smack dab in the middle where negativity was winning.
Yes,
So
it was.
what was that like? I feel like I'm interviewing you again.
Yeah, yeah. It was me focusing on all these things that I could not do anymore, right? And then saying, well, what value am I? Like, how can I date someone and not be able to go on a run with them, or be able, like, I can't do jujitsu anymore. I can't walk on a mountain with you. Just certain things that you took for granted that I just no longer like can do, and then I'm going to start inhibiting this other person's life because it will hurt me. And you start to really question your value of like, well, who am I, and like, what do I actually have to offer here? It goes much deeper than that, because over time, when that is your focus, it goes deeper and deeper and deeper into who you are, like, over that time period. And that negativity kind of enveloped who I was at the time. And I tried my hardest to get out of it. And, you know, I had moments where I was okay, but the vast majority of it was overshadowed by those negative emotions, because my focus was in a place of devaluing myself.
Wow. So I think I was able. I've gained like a thread of like I think something that can help anybody who's like in a negative place, or at least I think really keyword the underlying think, because that's when you're in a negative place. It's funny because when you're in a negative place, I've said this before, not necessarily on the podcast, but when you're in a negative place, it's like your actions harm the things that are good for you.
Yes.
So it's like when you get in a negative place, the people who love you, you start isolating them away from you. You might even do things to harm those relationships. So I don't want to undermine what it means to be in a negative place, but I think usually what happens, or just from hearing what you're saying, and then the example I came up with myself, like drawing patterns, it's like when you're in a negative place, it's because you believed you were this person. Like I'm Blair A, I'm Enoch A, like this version of myself.
Yes.
And something shatters that version of yourself. And really the way to get out of that is the redefinition. So if you were Blair A, now you have to redefine yourself as Blair B.
Yes.
And so that's kind of what will be my example. I was going to use baseball at first, but then I didn't want to use something physical, so you just went physical.
Yeah.
So for me, I'm going to go more of a mentality, or you can say maybe it's ego, maybe it's something like that. But for growing up in my life, like from age 10 to easily 18, 19, I was literally almost always the smartest person in the room.
Yeah.
Like always, like, and the bad part was I knew it. Like that's the difference. Is I wasn't just smart. I knew I was the smartest person in the room.
So I was similar, but you know how mine was so much worse? Mine
showed it.
No. Well, maybe, I don't know. Mine wasn't I'm smart. It was everybody else is like so dumb. There's like everybody else is idiots. Like it wasn't I'm smart. It was everybody else is idiots.
So it was just like So I just always felt like I knew better. I knew I was leading a life that was better than people. I just thought that like I was gonna be the greatest thing since sliced bread. I didn't think I knew. Yes. That's the thing about it. Like I have become great and stuff like that, and that's all. But like when you just know something and stuff like that, that humility is taken away from there.
Yeah.
Like that at any time that this could be, that it could go away, and it didn't go away. I'm still very much intelligent, but there wasn't a perspective based upon it. Like it's the thing. If you take a goldfish and you put him in a puddle, the goldfish is huge. It's very big. Take a goldfish and put it in the ocean, it's gonna get eaten. Like, I mean,
there are sharks.
Exactly. Its life is over. And so I was the goldfish. And so when like and even to a certain extent, when I got into Georgia Tech and I was there for probably a good few years there, I had that mentality of that. But I just came into contact with so many great people and greater than me,
Right.
and I befriended a lot of them, and I started seeing my circle who got around me who gravitated towards me, and I gravitated towards them, and I just saw how amazing that they were, and I started realizing that my intelligence, I'm not going to be the smartest person in the room. And if I am going to be the smartest person in the room, I probably need to go to a different room.
Change the room. Yes.
But for a lot of years at Georgia Tech, that was a struggle for me. Like to find people who were smarter than me in the same room. And it was my ego trying to battle, like, I am smarter than you. I wasn't trying to be smarter than them. I was trying to act like I was smarter than them. And that was the problem with me. And that probably it definitely came off as arrogance. Not probably. It came off as arrogance, and there's probably several people in my past who'd be like, "Oh, Enoch is arrogant," or "He was arrogant," and all this kind of stuff.
I've had that too.
It's okay. I apologize if I ever was, or I ever made anybody feel any type of way that they didn't deserve to feel. But so for me, when I had built up a pillar of my life on just how incredibly smart I was, and that I could just do anything that I set my mind to. And then when I built myself up as a giant, and then I actually met real giants, and it was just like, it was a shock that, oh, I am not a giant. And so from there, I had built my entire life on that. So every single thing was built on how smart I was, that no matter what I could do, no matter what problem I faced, I was smart enough to get over it. And then when that got shattered, my problems felt like they got bigger. I don't think they necessarily did get bigger, but it felt like they got bigger. Or I doubted my intelligence to be able to solve those problems. I was already second guessing myself, which amplifies my problems based upon me. And so I know for a while there, I just kept digging the tunnel and just getting worse and worse. And it was like, oh, I'm hitting rock bottom today. No, we're going to dig deeper than rock bottom. We're going to, go even deeper than that. And I did get very negative. I didn't see that there was going to be light at the end of the tunnel. I didn't see hope. I didn't think I could be any of the things I wanted to be. Like, I just thought that, I was slowly fading into existence. Like, happiness was not attainable. It was an idea.
Right.
So to get out of that, though, what I had to redefine myself, because intelligence, like I said, while I was, blessed with such great intelligence, to be the smartest person in the room isn't necessarily just about a natural gifted ability. It's also about who's the person who's going to want it the most. Who's the person who's going to go out there and get it the most. Who's going to work hardest the most.
Exactly.
So then, as I transitioned into the middle of my 20s, what I started saying is that, like, you might be smarter than me, you might be better than me, but I'm damn sure not going to let you outwork me. So any room, you can be on level 10 and I'm at level 1. Like, if you're putting in 4 hours a day, I'm putting in 10. I'm putting in 12. I'm putting in 16. So guess what? In a year, I'm on level 20 with you.
Right.
Like, we've skipped ahead, and like that's the mentality that I just kind of developed, and which was really cool because with the passing of like Kobe Bryant, I actually saw that like he was gonna outwork everybody. He didn't think he had the greatest physical abilities, even though he did, but he said he outworked everybody. He learned the rule book. He learned the game. He learned the game to a whole nother level in order to become one of the greatest people of all time. And so, like, as he's passed, like, I've done a lot more research on him and just to see what is this whole Mamba mentality, and just, like, been blown away by it. That, like, it's one of the things, it's one of the pillars that now I'm trying to build my life on, that, like, I'm going to outwork everybody. Like, I might not get it today, might not get it tomorrow, but I'm going to get it, and it's redefined myself. And so the beautiful part about it, though, the beautiful part about the redefinition is that your eyes are open to, you see more. So wherever you were before, the place that you defined yourself, it was a limited viewpoint. So it's like the analogy of the forest for the trees. Like, maybe you could see 5 trees, but then when you go through that shattering thing, you get pushed back so far. And when you actually get to the point where you redefine yourself, you're pushed back so far that now you don't see 5 trees, you see 500. And so now you're seeing more, you're able to encompass more, and you're now like, wow. And so with seeing more comes this humility of having seen who you were before, seeing the flaws of who you were before, and now the growth is in seeing those flaws.
Yeah.
So now when you approach things, you appreciate them more. So now, like, I guarantee you, if you run again, like, that's going to be a euphoria that you probably have never felt in life. When you actually get to the point where you're going to be able to lift weights and do other things and you're not going to have that, you know, doubt in your mind about is your body or your knees going to fail you. Like, that's going to be a euphoria that you will never forget. Now, my knee injury, like, I didn't have knee, I just had tendonitis in my knees for like a year or so.
Right.
So it was nothing compared to what you had. But I just remember when, like, that went away. That happened when I was like 21. So to this day, every single time I play basketball or racquetball or workout or anything, like, I'm cognitive of my knees and, like, they feel great. So
right.
it's like I'm appreciative of that fact, and I just don't take it for granted.
Yes. Anyone that has had pain stops taking for granted not having pain.
So
yeah,
I guess that's a big thing that, like, just looking at the thread of how to get from negativity to positivity is don't see it when you're facing those circumstances. If you can, try not to see it as a way of you're being attacked. Try to see that this is an opportunity to grow, because we always should be constantly growing.
Right.
I don't care how great you are. I don't care if you're the best person alive. Like, that doesn't, best is in comparison to other people, but we're not in a competition with other people. We're in a competition with ourselves. So who's the greatest version of Blair? So Blair B right now is great, but Blair C needs to come and be greater, and we need to get to the point where Blair Z as in zebra, and then from there keep going. Like, that's like until literally the day that you're no longer here. Like, it should be a perpetual, change and growth. You know, life should be more. The trend line should be a straight line. It shouldn't be a circle. And I feel like a lot of times we circle.
Yeah,
and I've circled many times.
We get in our habits and we just go in circles.
And so I think when we go in those circles, though, so like sometimes we have to be shattered in order to get out of the routine of being in circles. Sometimes. I mean, it's a very hard thing to say, because I don't want it to be like, oh, God.
Sometimes you do.
Yeah. I don't want to say that, you know, your knee pain, you had to have your knee pain. Like, if anything, that would be one of my top 3 things. If I could risk things would be different, I would risk your knee pain to go away.
Yeah.
Because it hurt my best friend. So, like, I don't ever want that to be a thing. But
there's no telling who I would be right now. I have no idea.
And I enjoy who you are right now.
I know.
I really do.
I do
really
too.
do. Our
like,
friendship's at an all-time high.
Would Blair A have done this podcast with you?
I don't know.
I mean, maybe.
Maybe. I
mean, there's just, I don't know.
You don't know.
Blair B did.
Yeah. You would definitely be different.
Yeah.
I would definitely be Enoch A would be different. Like, maybe if Enoch A and Blair A stayed the same, maybe we're not even friends.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
There's a whole thing about humility that, you know, allows you to see, like I said, see things that you didn't see. So maybe we saw the value in our friendship because of what we were going through. And so,
no doubt. And I think you also brought up an interesting point, and that is maybe there will be a day when I don't have knee pain and I can return to doing all these things that I used to love doing. But I think it's also important to keep in mind that there may not actually be that day, and that's okay.
That's fair. Yeah, that's beautiful. And so maybe that's kind of like to expand that to a broader focus, that like maybe one day with COVID-19, maybe this is the new normal.
It might be.
There might be.
We just don't know.
We don't ever know, and that could sound sad to some people, but like think about some of the, like, take a step back, think about some of the things that we've gained. Like I FaceTime my friends more. I call them. Like, I have like. I mean, I'm talking about great friends. Like, my great friends, like, I literally set up weekly phone calls with a lot of them now.
And I remember those.
Yeah, exactly. But I wasn't doing them before.
Right.
And it's not like I had anything against my friends and stuff like that. It was like, oh, I'll talk to you, you know, when it happens.
When I see you.
Yeah, but it's like now I'm being purposeful about it.
Right.
Like, with me and you, it was like, oh, well, we were doing our podcast before COVID-19 hit. And I was like, oh, okay, well, you know, if we come over, they say we'll do it. But now it's like we're purposeful with it. Like,
yes.
You know, we're making the most time. Like, you know, I do try to spend more time with your parents and stuff like that, and try to, like, to be purposeful about my actions. So it's like, you know, I don't take certain things that maybe I was taking for granted again. But
right.
Like, so,
right.
Like, there's a beauty in that. There's a beauty in, you know, like, now when you go out with your friends, I bet you since, you know, some of America opened back up, even though it's closing back again, but, like, when it did open back up for the previous moment, I bet you when people went out, those were probably some of the best days of their lives because they just appreciated every moment of being able to go eat at their favorite restaurant, being able to be around their favorite people. Like, those are real things. And so it's one of those things that, like, mentally, negativity, it's what sucks is you are literally the only person who gets yourself out of it. You can have people who...
No doubt. You can have people that support you, but at the end of the day, you have to be the one. So, as Morpheus said in The Matrix, I can show you the door, Neo, but you are the one that has to walk through it.
Okay, is that your movie reference for today?
It wasn't, but I just... Anytime I can put The Matrix in, I'm doing it.
Fantastic movie.
It is.
Fantastic. All-time great movie.
Let me ask you a question. 'Cause, I mean, I have a thought on this, but how do you think you go about the process of redefining yourself? Like, what do you actually have to do? Because it's easy to say that, right? And like, well, how do you, if you have serious loss of who you are, how do you do that? Because I mean, that would be my question if I was watching this. Was like, well, it's great to say, but how do I actually do it?
How do you redefine yourself? Very good question. So I would first ask your definition of yourself that now has been shattered. What was it built upon?
Right.
Like, that would be the first place, because like for me, I think my intelligence and what hurt so much about it when it got shattered is my intelligence to me was built upon praise. It was built upon other people's view of me as opposed to my own view.
Yeah.
So it was just like when I wasn't the smartest person in the room now, I'm not getting the perceived love that I was getting before, and that's what affected me. And so with that foundation is really built upon trash. Like, that's really what it is. It's like there's no inherent actual value to it. And so, like, I would see that the thing that you got shattered, was there actually inherent actual value there? Because if there's not, that's definitely the first place to start. Dive down into that and see like why you didn't actually have the true value that you need to have.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point.
So, that's definitely for me. Now, let's say that you did have inherent value there, then there's probably some bigger value that you probably were missing. Like, meaning that, okay, so it was built out of family. Maybe your definition of family needed to grow, needed to expand.
Maybe so.
Maybe you needed to see something more. Maybe, like you said, while you had a good definition of family, maybe you needed now a greater definition of family.
Right.
Like,
so it's not that it was wrong before. It's that it needs to change now that circumstances have changed.
Exactly. So it needs to grow. I mean, it's just like,
or it could have been wrong before.
I mean, it could have been wrong.
but either way,
and it's not even it needs to grow. Like, again, trees grow the entire time that they're alive.
Right. Sharks do too.
Yes.
The longer they live, the bigger they grow.
Whales are interesting creatures because if like it was not an experiment, but it was like they took like this whale and it was supposed to be like it grows like 20 feet long normally, and they capture like a baby one. Babies, they come out like super small, and so they took that small whale and then for the time being they put it like in a fish tank because they had nowhere else to store the whale because they're like, oh my god, because I think once it like by the time year one it's like already 10 feet. And so they're thinking, oh my god, the whale is like, we need to get it out of here because it's going to grow. And literally that whale only grew to be a foot long. Its surroundings dictated how much it grew.
I think that's a powerful message and metaphor.
That's right. I mean, it's there. I mean, like I'm a big person into like animals and how their behaviors and stuff like that. And so, like even with like horses, like they are trained every day to jump over fences. But like literally the same fences they jump over when they have someone riding them are the same fences that encage them. They can just jump over them and escape at any time.
Right.
But it's like, it's that mental that like, I can only jump over this fence if I have this jockey on my back telling me to.
Right.
As opposed to actually being able to do it myself. So it's like really our mentalities and our surroundings, which our mentalities and our surroundings, I guess that's a whole nature versus nurture thing.
It is.
Those are the things that really we allow to dictate who we are. And if you realize that like my mentality is almost solely controlled by me, I'm not gonna say it's 100%, but it's really like mostly controlled by you. If you flip that, like your life almost instantly changes.
No doubt, because like you are the only person who can limit yourself.
Exactly. you're the only, what you think of yourself is the only thought that matters.
Right.
It's literally the only thought. It doesn't matter. Honestly, I mean, it's great. I love my mom. I love my family and stuff like that. But literally, it's about what I think of myself. If I think I'm terrible, I am terrible.
Right.
If I think I'm
and no
great,
matter how much someone loves you, you can't love someone out of that.
I think that's what the hardest part about loving someone is.
It is.
It's like when you can see something in them that they can't see in themselves.
I have been there.
Yeah. and you fought like hell to try to see it, but it's like until they see it, then it's just the whole thing.
Yeah. So I have a little nugget for how to try to redefine yourself.
Okay.
Because it's what I did.
Okay.
So when I got back home, I wasn't really hanging out with friends that much. I wasn't going on walks because walking hurt, right? And so there was a point where I was like, just depressed, right? I was like, that negativity was overwhelming, right? And overshadowing anything positive that I had in my life. And then there came a time where I was like, well, I can still choose something to make myself better. And what did I do? I picked up guitar, right? I started with musician, of all things. I'm pretty sure you recommended that to me.
I did recommend musician to you. I did.
And so, I started off and it started sounding terrible. Still sounds kind of bad, but it's better than it was because I'm still practicing. It's growth. And my mom was like, well, why don't you go out and do this? Why don't you go out and do that? And I was like, because I have pain when I do that. And that, like, guitar is something that I can do that doesn't cause pain, but it's still something that I can, like, pour passion into and pour love and pour myself into. And so what I am saying is that if circumstances take a certain part of how you define yourself out of the equation, then redivert that passion that you had for that into something else that you can put into.
Because you never lose the passion.
Right.
Like that if you had that energy before, that energy is yours. It's just now you're not utilizing it.
Right.
So, it's fair. That's very fair. Okay, so I think now we need to transition into always my favorite segment. I don't know if it's yours.
Of course.
But movies.
Yes,
films,
movies.
Media. Something that is in a pop reference. So I think probably a good one for this one is like, what's the greatest character? I mean, usually a hero story arc is always going to be about change, but what's the greatest change, I guess, in the movie from a hero's perspective that you saw in which they had to change in order to grow? I already have mine, so you let me know if you need.
Go ahead.
Okay. One of the best ones, I think, would be the movie Black Panther with T'Challa. So
yes.
He had he thought of Wakanda and his father's legacy and all these things over here. And then and to me, that's what makes Killmonger one of the best villains that has ever been portrayed on screen, is that he really challenged that. He shattered all of what T'Challa thought was Wakanda, was his father's legacy, what was to be a good king. He shattered all of that because Killmonger represented the direct, and it wasn't even just a direct opposition, but it was more so, it was just such a different way of thought that he had never even thought about. And literally, he goes from a man who sees his dad as perfect. His dad was the perfect king, the best king, to, oh, my dad had flaws. Which is really good because it allows him also to have flaws.
Right.
And he doesn't have to be the perfect king. And it changes his entire way that he wants his kingdom to be. He's realized that maybe Wakanda has been slightly selfish by not trying to offer aid and resources to the world. While they see pain happening to people all over the world that maybe that wouldn't exist. And so literally it completely changes up the entire essence of Wakanda, and that leads to Infinity Wars, which then Wakanda gets destroyed. So maybe you shouldn't train, but again, Wakanda
don't help that much.
But Wakanda was able to fight back, and so just his mentality, just to grow. And I knew that when he learned his father's legacy and how he left a child, I know that had to be such a hurtful thing to learn. but it allowed him to like, I'm never gonna leave a child. I'm never gonna be a person who leaves my people behind, who leaves whoever turns my back on justice, whereas his father did. So, because of Killmonger, because of the shattering thing that he had to face and overcome, he grew so much as a king. Who, again, if you're a king, you affect so many people's lives. He affects millions of residents who live in his nation. And now, because Wakanda technically is the most advanced nation, where he's about to affect the entire world. One man is literally about to affect 7 billion people.
Yeah.
So, to me, that was, yeah.
Man, I gotta follow up that.
Yeah, I'm sorry, man. I had to follow up the knee thing, man. I was like, oh my god.
I know, right? You're like, nothing really.
Yeah, exactly. I was like, oh man. Ugh.
Okay. So, are we doing 3?
Just do this. Would be last. What do you mean by 3?
Movies. Or whatever.
Oh, no, it's just one character. Yeah, no. You're good.
Just one?
Yeah.
I have 2.
Okay, good.
Okay.
Go for it. Yeah.
Okay. So, I'm going to put this in levels of importance.
Okay.
So, first off is The Mentalist.
Okay.
Okay.
Third time it's been brought up.
Yeah.
And I still haven't watched it. I'm sorry.
It's going to just come up over and over again until he watches it. That's what it is. This is dependent upon Enoch.
What's he going to call this? The Mentalist moment at this point?
Exactly. I have the Mentalist moment. Anyways. So, okay. Patrick Jane. To really understand what I'm about to say, you have to have watched actually a good portion of The Mentalist. Probably like at least 4 or 5 seasons. Because it shows parts of what his life was like prior to joining CBI, as well as his first day on the job at CBI, which actually it wasn't really his job quite yet. So you have Patrick Jane that goes from being, frankly, a con artist, right? He would go in and use his skills, which are phenomenal skills of reading people, honestly looking into who they are and like seeing the pain in their life and transitioning it to something, and honestly usually making them feel better, but in a way that was manipulative considering his intentions. And he used that to get money, and then he called out a serial killer, right, with those skills. And frankly, maybe he shouldn't have, because he probably was a little bit overconfident in those skills when he did that. And that's not the only reason. But comes home, finds his wife and daughter murdered. And I don't know how a person can define themselves more than with family. And even more so with like who you chose to marry and this little person that is a part of you, right? That is,
he kind of sounds like Iron Man.
That is who you are. And so when you have that taken away from you, he had to go out and, well, frankly, part of himself, I think he redefined almost immediately, right? Actually, he did get admitted to a psych unit, so not quite immediately, right? It took some time, and he came out and he like joined CBI, and his only thing was, I want to hunt down the serial killer. That was like his thing for years and years and years, and
don't blame him.
No, I don't either. Like I said, he lost who he was.
Mm-hmm.
So he always had these skills, right? But then when he lost this wife and this daughter, all he was at that point was skills anymore. And that was maybe the more painful part of it. He no longer had that love that made up who he was. And so the part of himself redefined fairly quickly, in that he decided not to be a con artist anymore, right? He decided to go out and actually try to track down this killer. Honestly, still for somewhat selfish intentions. It kind of gets muddled when you start bringing that stuff into it. So I can't judge him for that, and I wouldn't want to. But then, over the course of actually, when he found the serial killer and killed him, spoiler alert.
Yeah, I don't have to watch it anymore.
And Yeah, you should probably know all the Mentalists before you watch it. just by me talking about it. Then he changed almost immediately. He was this like freer person because he let that part of himself go, and that redefinition almost took place immediately. Because I think in that case it's because he had been preparing for it for so long, and then he took that part of himself away, and he let more positive things come into how he was.
So I would argue that our psyche, usually if we're chasing after this thing to cover up really how we feel, and then once we get that thing, we become worse.
Yes. No, I completely agree. This is an exception to the rule.
This is called television.
Yes,
okay,
this is called television.
Got you.
I don't know that would have happened in real life.
They wouldn't have.
Probably not. But I think it serves as a good
example of
redefinition. Second example, probably one of my all-time favorite movies, Kung Fu Panda.
Okay.
Yes.
Also a Kung Fu Panda moment.
Right. Also a Kung Fu Panda moment. So Po in the beginning is this like chef adopted, right? Like doesn't actually know who his people are.
He's not adopted at first.
Well,
I got you.
Well, yeah. He doesn't know his history though, you know.
He doesn't know his dad isn't a bird.
That is not. Anyways, so he's like making food, serving people, but he has like big aspirations. And at the same time of having his big aspirations, he has these severe limitations on himself of actually ever attaining those aspirations, right? And then magically, someone believes in him. Is really what it was. Saw something in him that he didn't see in himself.
It's about the crazy old Turner Oogway?
Yes. Master Oogway. Master Oogway.
That was an accident.
There are no accidents.
Only if you do not believe in the Dragon Warrior.
And Master Shifu was like, dude, get off our mountain, right?
Even Tai Lung was like, are you talking about the panda?
You panda. We digress.
Yes.
Anyways, over the course of that movie, he goes from being this fat, unhygienic, not able to fight, honestly, like no value panda, to seeing his own beauty and realizing that he doesn't have to do anything else to be beautiful, to have value, to have worth. And then he comes back, and amongst all of his peers, I think that in itself is what gained him masterhood. That's when he became a master, is when he actually accepted himself, gained self-love.
Can I challenge that?
No. Go ahead.
Well, not challenge, actually, what you're directly saying. I actually think the greater arc in there isn't Po, it's Shifu.
Oh, no doubt.
So Shifu, because with Shifu,
I think they're equally powerful.
Okay,
fair. I don't know one's more than the other.
But so with Po didn't necessarily do anything different. He was just put into different circumstances.
Yes.
But like Shifu, he had the big epiphany in which he was like, I can't train you how I trained in 5. Like, I have to train you how you need to be trained. So food was his motivation. So he found something that Po was passionate about, and he trained him with that.
Yes.
And literally, that was the huge... But before that, Shifu dived down into this very depressive place. Not trusting anything.
Mm-hmm.
And except for his pillar. His pillar would have been Oogway. Like, I'm going to trust my master.
Right.
And literally, when his master left, it was like, well...
I'm
lost. But my master believed this was Dragon Warrior, so I haven't believed it this entire time. Maybe if I start believing it, maybe it will grow into a tree, peach tree.
A peach tree.
And so I would say that he had one of the greatest character changes, even though he's not the main focus point of the movie.
Yes.
So
he did.
I love Kung Fu Panda moment. Fantastic. I'm gonna watch that tonight.
Matrix, Mentalist, Kung Fu Panda, Black Panther.
It's good podcast.
All amazing.
Oh, yeah. Okay, so I think this brings us to our final segment.
I think so.
What did we learn about each other today?
I didn't realize you were so egotistical.
I mean, apparently you haven't had enough conversation with my My mom would
No,
let you know.
I do need to hang out with your mom more.
My
That's
mom
true.
would let you know.
That's true.
She's just like, oh my gosh, you just love to argue. Like, you should have been a lawyer. Like, it's just, I hear that like on a daily basis.
Yeah. That's what I love about you, though.
Yeah, I know she absolutely hates it.
Yes.
Absolutely hates it.
Yes, I know. But I don't know. No, I didn't necessarily know that was something that you struggled with, you know? Really seeing yourself with this person and having, I think it's more of a thing of like external validation for quite some time, and then coming to a point of seeing that you don't really need that external validation, and you have your own value, and frankly I think that you're pouring that into the world at this point. So maybe, I don't know, your ego brought something good out, but I think you also like sublimated your ego, you know.
Yeah, a little bit.
Yeah,
a little bit. Yeah. I think I guess the thing I learned about you, I think along the journey, I never knew the mental burden that like I want to try this, but I can't. Like, I guess like really how in depth it went. That like, hey, I want to do this thing, but I just have so many risks involved, and the rewards just don't outweigh it.
yeah,
Like, I didn't know the cost analysis of your mentality for this, and it was like it really brought a lot of things in perspective. That like literally, if you decide to do something very fundamental as like that might bring you joy, as in like dance in the way that you used to dance, that now you might have to push back your residency by 6 months. Like,
yes,
but that's, I mean, people have to think about like how much do we take for granted something that simple. Dancing is very simple, like
right.
Just in terms of what it is, it's very fundamental to a lot of us, and that literally can throw your entire life off track for 6 months. I guarantee you, I was just around a whole bunch of people and they were just dancing randomly at all times. I can tell you that entire room, nobody thought about that. I can tell you that I have never thought about that in any room that I've been in. So it kind of just, it gave me perspective just hearing from you, and I think that's why I love this podcast. That I think that's something that we really aim to do and we try to do is give people perspective on matters.
Yeah.
To try to, you know, it's not even about helping, just think about it a little bit different.
Yeah,
just a little bit different.
It's just another perspective, and if you gain something from it, then that's great. And if you don't, then at least I hope that we are funny enough that you get something out of it.
Exactly. They bought us multiple episodes.
Right.
Probably a little bit funny.
Right.
At least, hey, we think we're funny.
I know.
Hey,
we have a good time. Yeah, exactly.
This.
That's what it is.
That's good. So, well, I think that brings us to the end of this episode. You know, follow us, subscribe, stay tuned for more.
You know, actually, real quick, I think one of the things that we touched on subtly a little bit was like mental and emotional health, right? Okay. When it comes to like having these really negative things happen to us and searching for the positive. And I think that we all need to kind of, you know, when you have someone who's a best friend, right? My best friend, or someone that you can talk to who isn't going to judge you for the things that you're feeling. Right? Do you have someone like that, right? And if you don't, then I think you have to find someone, because some of the stuff, some things you don't even process without really talking about them. I know I found that for myself. So, and you also just need to release some things a little bit. Some things carry too much of a burden for you to carry it all on your own shoulders. You have to let people at least try to carry it with you. And sometimes just someone else knowing what you're going through is enough to make it a little bit less heavy. I don't know. I just wanted to throw that out there. That's all.
That's fair. Okay. Thank you, buddy.
But like and subscribe.
Like and subscribe, and we'll keep them coming.
Yeah,
we'll keep them coming. I hope you guys are enjoying them.
Yeah, I know. We definitely enjoy doing it, and we're gonna keep bringing it to you. So
exactly. So as always, I'm Enoch.
I'm Blair.